All right, it's Monday morning again. Monday is my record date. I'm actually feeling good and bad today. The Red Sox won over the weekend. The Patriots lost yesterday. Not to talk about sports, but I'm like 50-50 this morning. So today's topic is we're going to talk about success and optimizing success. I have a guest from New York. Her name is Dr. Ruth Gotian. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ruth is the Chief Learning Officer at Weill Cornell Medicine. She's a Chief Learning Officer in anesthesiology. She's also an author of an upcoming book called The Success Factor. We're going to talk about what that's all about. We're going to spend today talking about success and all sorts of fun stuff around that. So Ruth, thank you for being with me today.
Thanks for having me and allowing a New Yorker to come and chat with you. This is a heated time.
I love New York. I love New York. Although I will say I don't know if you're a sports fan, but I was in New York, game one of the Red Sox Yankees series in 2004. We were watching it in a bar. I didn't know anybody. Once they found out I was from Boston, I got slammed for about
that's like hours. A security issue.
Yeah. But it was fun. I love New York. I've been there a bunch of times. So let's just get into this whole concept of high achievement and success. So I guess my first question is why this topic and why did you write this book?
So I don't believe anybody wakes up in the morning aiming for average. I think people really do want to succeed, but nobody really knows how to do it because they don't really teach us that in school. They don't teach us that in the workplace. And I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who have achieved incredible things. Starting with the students of a program I used to run. I used to run an MD PhD program, and it had a 3.5% acceptance rate.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, these people are, the cream of the crop. But even amongst that group, I noticed that there are people that just had this different vibe, this different energy, this different ability. They all did great things, but there's certain people that were able to catapult to extreme greatness. And then I worked in a place where I was surrounded by Nobel Prize-winners. So between the two of them, I really had to do this deep dive and figure out what is it that they did that the rest of us haven't figured out yet. So I became so obsessed with success. I actually, at the age of 43, went back to school and got my doctorate and studied this. And I studied how these people became so successful. So originally it was physician scientists, but then afterwards I just expanded it and it included astronauts and Olympic champions and CEOs, because I figured if I could figure out how they became successful, I can reverse engineer that path. And I realized that a Nobel Prize physician scientist is just like an Olympic champion. Mm-hmm. And that was my eureka moment. I was like, oh, this is it. They both figured out the same thing. So if they figured it out, I'll find it out. I'll reverse engineer that path, create a blueprint, and then teach it to everyone. And that's what I did with the book, The Success Factor.
Yeah, I think the reverse engineer piece is the key. Once you know where you're going, then you can kind of backtrack to get there, I would think.
That's right.
How would you define success? There are so many ways in which people that I've met over the course of my life and personally and professionally define what it is.
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts on it, but how would you define it?
So it's interesting because that actually takes up a whole chapter. And one thing that I really want everyone to realize is actually two things. The definition changes based on who you ask. And it's changed based on industry, based on rank, based on gender, based on ethnicity. These things are all very different. And I wrote a whole academic paper on that, but the bottom line is it changes. And the other issue is that it's a moving target. So once you think you've gotten there, there's actually always more that you can do. But one of the things that all the extreme high achievers had in common was that whatever success they achieved, that was just one goal. There was always something more to do. That's why I have never heard of a Nobel Prize winner who got their Nobel Prize and then quit science. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. It's why so many of the Olympic champions, right after the Olympics, they take a quick break and then they're training again for the World Championships, because there's always something more to do. And the other thing that the extreme high achievers have is, despite all of their accolades, they created this paradigm shift. They moved the field forward And that is really what made them so successful. And by moving the field forward, they had this enormous platform, and they used that platform for good in order to give back in some way. So all of the extreme high achievers they pushed the field forward, and they gave back either one-on-one or creating programs or creating policies or all of these other things. So that's important. You can't just take, you have to give as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, I'm going to let you kind of frame the nature of this conversation, or the flow of this conversation. There are 4 areas that you cover in your book that must be done at the same time, all the time, in order for you to achieve success with anything. You want to kind of walk us through those, and maybe we can just kind of dive into each organically.
Absolutely. So I want to start by saying that these are all things that every single person can do. It can be done. And in the book, The Success Factor, I actually teach people how they can do this, because I don't believe that success needs to be for other people. So if we're going to start, the first thing we have to do is figure out what it is you love doing, what it is you are put on this earth to do, why you wake up in the morning. It's why you're thinking about it all night. This is your passion and purpose. And we call this in adult learning intrinsic motivation. This comes from that fire in your belly. This comes from within. And for anyone who's ever applied to any sort of graduate school, one of the things they always look for in the personal statement is their why. Why do they want to do this? Because if you can figure out your why, then all of the hurdles and challenges and the feeling of isolation, you'll know that that's temporary. You'll be able to overcome it because you're fueled by this internal passion. Now, this is different from extrinsic motivation, which is what most people have. Extrinsic motivation is, I am doing this because I'm going to get a promotion, I'm going to get an award, I'm going to get a trophy, I'm going to get something that other people are judging me. And when other people judge you, that just is not sustainable. You will burn out or fail out. But when it comes from within, I don't care if there's a lack of funding. I don't care if there's a lack of recognition. I don't care if there's a pandemic. I am moving forward. And that's the difference.
Can I interrupt and talk? Like, I want to cover all of them, and then you talk. I'm like, I want to dive into that. Do you mind? Or do you want to frame them all up, or can I ask you a question?
You go ahead.
All right. So the whole intrinsic thing, I 1,000% subscribe to that. The whole idea of your why, your purpose, Simon Sinek, all the stuff Simon writes about and talks about. I could not buy into that more. I find that there are a lot of people out there that cannot answer that question.
Yeah.
You ask them that question, and you might as well be asking for some algorithm that hasn't even been figured out yet. Why is that? Why is that so hard?
Because people often confuse being good at something and being passionate about something. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're passionate about it. So that's actually why I created a passion audit, so that you can actually separate the difference between what you're good at versus what you are passionate about. And it's a 3-column exercise where we list everything that you're good at. Doesn't matter if you like it or not, everything you're good at. Then the second column is everything you're not good at, or the things you don't like to do. Those are usually the things you procrastinate doing. Yep. And then the last column is the things you would do for free if you could, and you might already be doing them. Things that you're doing on the weekend when you're procrastinating. What is it that you're doing? Really ways to figure that out. And if your listeners want to do their own passion audit, there's a template that they can just download for free at ruthgotian.com/passion audit.
Excellent. We'll include that on the release. I think that would be an interesting and helpful tool for people. I can tell you, I am passionate about helping people find their own independence. Yes. Mentally, professionally, financially. How do you actually achieve that confidence and autonomy and independence? And I honestly think that if we can get people to that point, we're going to have an unbelievable world. It's helping them realize that that's actually doable and giving them the tools to do it. What about you? What are you passionate about? Before we get into the second topic here, what are you passionate about?
I am really obsessed with success, of how to get it and how to get other people to get it themselves. Yeah. Right. I think people want it. They just don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And they've become so entrenched in this, I'm going to my job instead of I'm going to do what I love.
Yeah.
That's the difference, because when you get to do what you love,
Yeah.
you're skipping and whistling on the way to work.
You are. And can you be successful without being happy?
You can, but remember, it's not sustainable. And it becomes a moving target. So you'll be successful for a while,
Yeah.
but you'll be very unfulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. I coach and have coached for years people that are a lot smarter than me. I'm not a rocket scientist to say the least. But I've coached people that make lots of money, or they have great, big titles or massive amounts of responsibility. And over the years, I've met a lot of them. They're not happy. They're on paper, they're successful. But they're drowning inside because of some whatever, I don't know. But to me, I think at the end of the day, it's can we teach them a formula for happiness and contentment? Is that possible?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And I think when you get to your why, then it's very much, it is attainable. And that's what will help you get through those difficult times, because let's face it, we all face challenges, all of us. But the extreme high achievers are so tapped into their why that they never think about, will I overcome this challenge? It's never a question of if. It's always a question of how. How will I overcome this challenge? Because they know they have to, because this is why they were put on this earth, right? So they never question if they have the capabilities. They question, what is the strategy I haven't thought of to make this happen? And it's a complete shift in mindset. And when you're able to shift to that mindset, it's completely different. And it's also inspiring for other people. So talk about leaders lifting other leaders with them. If this is the bar that you're setting, if this is how you're a role model, who doesn't want to be around you?
Absolutely. Well, the mindset is the key. And I mean, if you have an employee mindset, you might not believe that the why will make a difference, or that it could be applied inside of somebody else's organization. I was talking to somebody last week, and this person's energy is phenomenal and uplifting, inspirational, just a tone setter. And we had a conversation. I wonder, I said, is this really what you're here to do? Do you even realize that maybe this is what you're here to do, where somebody else, one of the peers, is more of a steady, calming, and is that what you're here to do? Structure, is that what you're here to do? So could the why be as simple as that?
It could be. It could be. And you really need to figure it out. And I think that's why the passion audit is so important. And what I recommend to people is, every time you have a life transition, redo that passion audit, right? If you have a new job, a new partner, another child, a move, a pandemic, whatever it is, because you'll see all of our passions have changed since the pandemic began, right? So transitions focus us and force us to reflect, force us to think about what we want, what we could have. And I think doing that passion audit will help frame that and give it some clarity.
Right. And I would think the passion audit, and ultimately discovering that, is what drives you through the change. There are no destinations. There's stops along the way, but as life changes, we can't define ourselves by, oh my, well, now that's gone, or I'm no longer here. It's the why that keeps you going, which I would think ties into the second concept, which is, I don't want to steal your thunder, but perseverance, correct?
That's correct.
How do you find it?
When you love what you're doing, you don't get tired, you don't get hungry, you don't get achy, you don't drop your pen at 5 o'clock. You are going to do it until the job gets done, until you hit whatever milestone you want to hit today. You get into what we call a state of flow, where you are so focused, just time melts away. And if you can get that, you are not letting that go. And I know that when I wrote the book, The Success Factor, when I got into it, because I clearly geek out on this, I love this so much, I couldn't type fast enough. The words were just pouring out of me. And I probably skipped a few meals. It got dark all of a sudden, but I was so into what I was doing because I loved it so much. I found my intrinsic motivation. So it wasn't so hard to do it. It was truly what we call a labor of love.
What did you learn about yourself as you were writing?
I made myself patient zero. So I tried out all of these things that I found with the extreme high achievers, and I saw changes in myself
Yeah.
And I knew that this works if you do all four of these things together and you're patient with it. So I am a believer.
I am too. I am too. The perseverance piece, if you interviewed me 25, 30 years ago, I probably had about 2% of the perseverance required to be successful. It was discovered along the way, but not without falling on my face a bunch.
Yeah.
And so there are so many people out there that will say, yeah, no, I get it. You're just more motivated, or they dismiss the success as you were just born with a different DNA or a different level of focus. How do you dispel that with people? I think it's crap. When somebody says that to me, I'm like, that is garbage. It's a story you're telling yourself. There's no truth to it. But what are the secrets, or what's one idea that you would give to somebody in order to help them develop perseverance?
It all goes back to finding your intrinsic motivation, because if you found it, I don't have to push you to work hard.
Right.
Look at musicians, right?
Yeah.
I learned piano, right? It was the requisite thing to do. I'm okay at it, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. It's not where I ran to when I had a break. But then there are other people, they love it. And this is their release, and they run to it and they love it.
Yeah.
And they'll keep practicing over and over for hours a day because they love it. To get me to do that when I was 14 years old, that would have been torture.
Yeah.
But for other people, that's what they love to do. So when they love to do it, they're going to keep at it. And if they're learning a new piece, they will practice those few measures over and over and over and over until it's flawless, because it comes from within.
Do you think people can love something they're afraid of?
Of course.
The reason I asked that question is I used to be afraid of getting up in front of people. And now if I can't do that, I don't have a job. So, but there was a time in my life where the idea of actually standing up and trying to relate to an audience of strangers who doesn't know me was horrifying, but I would do it. And I literally did it hoping that hopefully this is the last time. That's in my head. Hopefully this is the last time I have this feeling, until somewhere along the way it just clicked and I crave it. So what's your take on that?
Well, one of the things with extreme high achievers is that they fear not trying more than they fear failing.
Yeah.
And that's actually very important to understand, because they understand, the high achievers, that failing is part of the process. And if they fail, they'll actually learn something. And they're not going to make that mistake again because they learned something from this process, but they can't not try. When your fear of not trying trumps your fear of failing, you're not going to be afraid to try new things and take strategic risks.
Is that how the human mind naturally relates to these ideas, or does the human mind rather say, no, I'd rather fail without understanding the consequences of not trying?
I think most people don't understand the need for strategic risks. These are all strategics. They're not going into it blindly. They have strategically thought about it. And I think that's the important missing link for people.
All right. What about this? The next concept of fundamentals or foundational basics.
Yeah. So the next one is, despite all of the awards, the gold medals, the Nobel Prizes, the going to space, all of these extreme high achievers have a very strong foundation, which they're constantly reinforcing. So the same things that they did early in their career are the same things that they have done later in their career. So the scientists are still designing experiments, even if they got that Nobel Prize. The Olympians are still doing the same basic drills that they did early in their career. I spoke to Kayla Harrington, the two-time Olympic gold medalist in judo. She said everything she learned about judo was in the first 6 months.
Wow.
Kobe Bryant, before sunrise, would do layups and workouts in the gym. Those are the same drills you would see in any junior high gym.
Yep.
That hasn't changed. So that's what's important. You can't say, I won the Nobel, I won the Olympic medal, I don't need to warm up, I don't need to try anymore. Oh, they try and they perfect the basic skills. In fact, Bonnie Blair, who has, I think, 5 Olympic medals, 5 gold medals in speed skating, at one point, she actually went back to her original coach to perfect the technical skills, because she was competing against the then East Germans who were much bigger than her. And she said, there's no way I can get that big. There's no way I can have that power. But she said, what I can't do with my size and power, I can beat them in the skills. And that's what she did. She went back to an original coach to perfect her skills. And that's how she got to be a gold medalist and win.
How much are you working against a society or a world or a system that's robbing people of what you're just describing, putting the time into the fundamentals, whether it's weight loss where, oh yeah, you don't have to do that. You can work out for 10 minutes, or all you need to do is, take this pill, to, oh, you want to make that team. All you need to do is write the check. You don't have to earn your way onto the team. Just write the check and you're in a club. You know what I'm saying? So like we live in a world where it's really easy to skip over the fundamentals only to find out later that I'm really not in good shape. The weight came back, or I really don't belong on this team, or I didn't really deserve this grade. I just learned how to take the test.
Yeah. So that's why I said you have to tap into your intrinsic motivation first. That is literally step one. And you cannot skip any of the steps, including the foundational steps. And look, if Kobe Bryant and Olympic champions and Nobel Prize-winners can do it, you and I can do it too.
Yeah. You said earlier, this isn't taught in school. My question is why?
Look, we only have them for a limited number of hours per day. And we haven't changed the educational system very much. It's the same number of hours, same number of years, but a lot more information, right? I mean, there used to be a physician desk reference that was a book every person had, right? Everyone who finished medical school had it. All that stuff and 10,000 times more is now on their phone, and they have to know it all. Right? Medical school is still, for the most part, 4 years, but we have a lot more treatments, a lot more medicine, a lot more advancements, but it's still 4 years. So there's a limit to what we can do in the classroom, which is why we get to the fourth element, which is the informal learning and the fact that they're constantly learning. So all of these extreme high achievers are constantly learning. Long after they finish their formal education, they are surrounding themselves with people and ideas and new knowledge because they know that there's always more to learn. So being in a classroom for 3 to 8 hours a day is simply not realistic for adults. So what they do is they can read books, they can read journals, they can read blogs, they can listen to podcasts such as this one. Hopefully I'm adding some new knowledge to people. Watch YouTube, second most searched engine. Listen to, even on social media, while there's some negative stuff, there's a lot of good things as well. So there's so many ways that we can learn new things, but we can also learn by talking to other people and surrounding ourselves with interesting people. That's how we can learn new things. And all of the extreme high achievers had not just one mentor, they had a team of mentors that gave them additional perspectives, that pushed them, that believed in them more than they believed in themselves.
So we talked right before we started recording on mentorship, and you would recommend that a mentor, if I understand you correctly, is a mentor assigned or selected?
Oh, never assigned, always selected organically.
Yes.
Why is that? Pet peeve of mine.
So, it's a total pet peeve of mine. But why? Give me your take on that.
Well, look, not everyone from Boston is the same.
Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, so I'm told. So just putting people, because you're both from Boston, putting you together, that doesn't quite make sense, right? Because what if your interests and your personality and your learning style align better with someone from Wyoming?
Yep.
So I think what we need to do instead is there's two options, and I think both should be done. I think you can create an initial assignment to just get the ball rolling, but know that you both have an out. In fact, you're encouraged to both get an out. So I would say, David, I really think that you should talk to so-and-so, because that person, I think, would be so helpful to you. and would able to teach you X or give you perspectives about Y, or has a network in this area that you're so interested in, right? And I can help make those connections for you. But I think the other thing that we need to do is actually put ourselves in situations where we're meeting interesting people and let those organic conversations flow. Because when you meet those people in an organic way, and I don't care if it's at the coffee line at the conferences or in the chat rooms in webinars, you know who you connect with, whose ideas resonate with you. Those are the people you should surround yourself with, not just because you're both from the same school or you both are from the same hometown or because you both like spaghetti and meatballs. That's not the way to start mentoring relationships. It's who has, whose ideas resonate with you, whose mindset and personality and learning style and teaching style resonate with you, and has the network to help you succeed and believes in you more than you believe in yourself.
Key statement there. So, so this ties into openness. In order to consider informal learning, you've got to be open to the idea that you don't know something. You also have to be open to the idea that maybe you've got to look inside and make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Many people are constant learners, but they're learning to validate, or they're learning to pad their whatever, but they're not necessarily learning because they're curious or open to change.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think all the extreme high achievers are constantly learning. We have all heard Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban are reading hours and hours and hours every day. We all, they've got bigger bank accounts than all of us put together. So from that standpoint, they're very successful. But I think what made them successful is that they're always open to learning new things. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, I didn't hear about that. Oh, I wonder if what I read here, what I heard about here, if we can use it in this way. That's what made them successful, being open to new knowledge from anywhere. It can come from absolutely anywhere.
I want to hear your take on this, because as a coach, I learn more working with people that don't come from my experience.
Yeah.
Whether it's women or if you're gay or if you're from a different country, that to me it's allowed me to be a better coach to others that might look like me and try to identify as oh, you get me, Dave. We come from the same area. We come from the same neighborhood. I'm actually more valuable to them as a result of coaching others. What's your experience with that?
Well, I think that's true. However, there's a caveat here. We all have to understand that even if people look like us, they are not us. Mm-hmm. And they come with their own history, their own experiences, their own meanings of those experiences. And I think as a coach, you have to understand that they are coming with that and understand where they came from. Because there are many people who on the facade can look exactly like us, but have gone through extremely different experiences from us. Right. And we won't know that just by looking at them. So we need to understand and be open to understanding where they came from and what their journey has looked like, and not make assumptions that we know. Yeah. So I think that is really what makes the great coaches, is being open to that and understanding that they have cognitive loads that we might never understand. But knowing that they have it is critical.
I agree. So over the years, because of the experience I've had industry-wise, I've had men in my age bracket say, hey, well, Dave, we're same age. You've got this experience. I've got this experience. I think you'd be a great coach for my company. I resist that. Still take them on as a client once they realize that that's not the reason to hire me. So. Yeah. It's funny because usually it's the client or the potential client that's saying, hey, we have this in common, we should work together. It puts my wall up immediately. So it's more me saying, no, that's not the reason. That's not the reason.
I always share the story of how I found my doctoral dissertation advisor. I was older and I was working full-time, had a family, and I was trying to find the right dissertation advisor. And I went to a school. I mean, these people literally wrote the theories, the best of the best. And they were also extremely busy. And I knew what my learning style was, and I wanted somebody that would complement that so that they can push me in a certain way. And I wanted someone who was an expert in certain fields. And I spoke to everyone and they were all great, but I didn't think that they would have the time or the capability or, or whatever it is. And academically, they were literally the best of the best. And I was introduced to someone who was not originally on my radar, but I'm so glad that I was introduced to her. She is a generation older than me. She lives in another state. She's a different religion. We could not be more different. We also could not be more perfect for each other. She understood my learning style. She understood that when I have a challenge or a question, I don't want to read 25 articles about it. I want to talk it out. And she understood that. And every single morning on my commute to work, we would get on the phone and we would talk through what I read the night before, what I thought about her comments, what questions I had, what I agreed with, what I disagreed with. How can we change things so that I'm comfortable, but yet it's still correct? That all happened with discussions because she knew that I needed to talk things out, and it worked out. And she could not be more different than me. And today I still consider her one of my mentors. And in fact, years later, when I wrote the book proposal for The Success Factor, I showed it to her. She's one of the few people who saw it because I really wanted her perspective. I wanted her thoughts. I wanted her guidance because she did not steer me wrong. And I knew she would never steer me wrong. And to this day, the reason we have The Success Factor is because of her guidance and her advice that she gave me on the book proposal.
So is it ultimately that she's the person that you believe understood you?
Oh, she completely understood me. And she's the one who made me a great writer.
Excellent
without
story.
question.
Excellent story. All right.
And her name is Dr. Marie Volpe. I need to give her a shout out.
Dr. Marie Volpe. Okay, I'll look her up after this conversation. All right, Dr. Ruth Gotian, give me your final whatever. What do you want people to know? How can they find your book when it comes out? I'll give you the last word.
So I think success is really attainable and achievable for anybody who wants it. The question is, how badly do you want to be successful? So for those who do, I've written The Success Factor, and it's available wherever you get books: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, independent bookstores. It's available for pre-sale. You can pre-order it now, and it'll arrive on your doorstep in January. And if you want more information about me, just go to ruthgotian.com or just find me on social media. And the passion audit and also template on how to find a mentoring team is also on my website, ruthgotian.com.
Thank you so much for being with me today. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I had fun.
Awesome.